Welcome everybody to the last day of the VTG. The first session is going to be about multi-homed pods, and by multi-home pods we mean pods that networking wise can be either on several networks or with several different networking infrastructure, or just different and several endpoints in the same network. So let's first go a bit over the status of the infrastructure that we can use uh, for achieving this. So CNI 0.3.0 added support some time ago for multiple interfaces. This started as a patch that you can see in the reference that originally targeted being able to have an interface name different than F0, because some plugins apparently needed that. And the more that they pulled on why things were like they were, and requirements mounted, so they ended up adding support for multiple interfaces. So you still get a single CNI add to network request, but the difference is that you can return multiple interfaces. So in plain CNI, what you'd get is that you have configuration for several networks, for example, and then your CNI plugin just returns information for all those networks. And the information that you return is, as you can see here on the Etherpad, the name of the interface, the MAC address, the sandbox. I'm not entirely sure why this is done. I suppose that it's for pods that have access to multiple namespaces, but I mean it's probably like for checking the liveness, but it surprised me. And then instead of having IP4 and IP6 fields as it used to have, now there is a single IP field that is a list, and each item can be either IPv4 or IPv6. And it specifies each item for which device the configuration is. The routes and DNSs, that sort of configuration is still separate, and it's not per interface. All right, so this is in CNI, but Kubernetes has not updated the dependency it has on CNI. So this code is still not on the Kubernetes tree. I checked just before the meeting. There is a request for fetching the new version of CNI, but I think it's for another purpose. It's another pull request. I think it's related to the fact that now you can apparently chain plugins or something like that. And so even if we were to return the results, multiple results, Kubernetes would not understand that, so we would still need to return CNI 0.2.0 for a while. It then added a link to the Multus CNI, which is CNI plugin developed by Intel some time ago. That what it does is you can tell it to basically delegate to other CNI plugins. It's like it multiplexes, or demultiplexes in this case. It receives a NAT network and then it calls other CNI plugins. This is a bit similar to what Ilya was doing at the beginning with our CNI, which was that he was trying to reuse other CNI plugins, or maybe it was just the network plugins and not the CNI drivers. I don't remember, but it's basically this. If you want to support multiple devices before Kubernetes has support, there is Multus CNI, I'm not sure if it's something that it's going to be made into a self-standing project with releases and packaging and so on. But even if it's just as a proof of concept, as it started, it's an interesting reference for how we may do things. All right, so I'm getting close to the part where I will expect other people to talk as well. So there are several approaches, being the fact that the status is a partial support, only part of the stack supports this. And this is that if we'd say, okay, it would be interesting to have to start to build the pieces that we will need for support anyway, or we'd say we want to just have POCs about this or whatever. That is the part that I put for the impatient. That is something that I expect that will be useful anyway, which is that if Kuryr CNI sees multiple VIF annotations, it will try to network them all, and it will only report the first one in the annotations serialization.
Tony, my question is a bit about the use case itself. Do we expect Kuryr to take care of all possibly listed networks, and which means that all of them must be managed by Neutron, or we are going to mix and match between different networking options, while one can be Kuryr and another one can be something else?
Right. I mean, that's up to us to decide, right? If we want to do something like Multus to delegate on others or not. I don't really have a preference about that. I don't really mind. Like if Multus would decide to be a package project and something that can be consumed generally, maybe we could say, okay, so we'll just make documentation of how to use Multus with Kuryr in a way that it's not conflicting. It is an option. The other option is, of course, like to make the delegation code ourselves. Like I don't have enough opinion formed for that to even cast my vote. I don't really mind.
Yeah, actually, same here, but I think we should start from defining the scope of what we want to achieve, and then probably talk about the technical.
So the minimal scope I would like to achieve is to be able to plug into multiple Neutron networks. So that's the absolute minimal that I want when talking about multi-home pods.
And by multiple networks, you mean managed by the same backend, different backends, doesn't matter?
Well, I think there is some sort of possibility if both like interesting. I hadn't thought completely about that. So you mean, for example, that you would have different ML2 drivers for each interface?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I suppose that is a legitimate use case, and it wouldn't really mean much for us. I mean, we would just call beef plug, and if it's supported, it's supported. So yeah, that's perfectly fine for me. For the nested case, of course, then we would have to add support for multiple link devices, because each VM port would belong to a different backend. That's fine. The case I had in mind was, for example, when you need a pod in more than one network, regardless of the backend. Yeah.
Okay.
So that is one thing, and I think that it would be quite easy nowadays in our CNI code to just check if instead of a beef annotation there is a list of them. And I generally think it's not a bad thing if we change our contract between the controller and the Kuryr CNI driver to be a list, even if it has just one element, which would be what we would have for now. I think that's a good thing to have for the first release, to change these things that may grow into a list. On the here in the possible approaches, I also talked that once it is a split, it also means that we could use something like the Kuryr CLI to add to hot plug pods. Sorry, to hot plug ports into pods. So the Kuryr CLI would be able to make the daemon add an annotation for a different port, and then the CNI daemon would see that and would be able to network it. Like, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm saying it could be done. It could be interesting, and it could address some real use cases, like for example Octavia. And then before the split, of course, if you would want to leverage that, you would depend on either creating the pod manually with already beef annotations, or have the Kuryr controller put multiple annotations at once. So on the Kuryr controller side, don't worry, I'm going to stop after this part so that we can discuss. For the Kuryr controller side, it should be that the driver interface that we have now for getting on which subnets we should be creating ports should probably have the contract of receiving a request and returning an iterable, so that it can return more than one subnet in which we should be creating ports. And then yeah, I put if it's possible. So Kuryr does not have, and I have no idea. We should probably be more active in the, or I should be more active on the TIC network meeting, because I have no idea when they add support for the multiple devices, if they are just going to add them all to the endpoints, or they are not going to do that. I don't even know if it would be possible for us with patch request to change the endpoints of a service. So by default, as I said before, we would just return information about one of them, and that's the one that would go to the endpoints. In the meantime, if somebody wanted to hack it, and if it's possible, they could just update the endpoints
Tony,
manually.
can you elaborate how the networking part is related to the service endpoints?
Sure. Okay. So if you have a pod, part of a service, and it has more than one network or more than one port, you would possibly want it. Well, I say possibly, not definitely.
It will have different IP address, I guess.
Right. So you would probably want both IP addresses to be part of the endpoint for that service, right?
But endpoint is an IP address. I think it's not the pod information or whatever, just IP address.
No, it's the IP addresses of that service. Since the pod has multiple IP addresses, so let's say that you have a service with two pods, and the second pod has two IP addresses. So I would expect,
but from the endpoint perspective, endpoint is identified by IP address, so it will already have the proper IP address of the relevant interface in the pod.
Actually, there is also target reference in the endpoint, which for the pods it has reference to the pod, and so yeah, services do distinguish between pods and external IPs and that stuff.
Right. So it's a bit of a question whether endpoints, where there should be endpoints for all the IP addresses, or for all the ports that the pod may have. I don't know what the community will decide. I don't even know if it's something that they want or not, or if it makes sense. I'm just saying that it's something that should be taken into account. So, all right. So that's the for the impatient approach, which I would say it's mostly so that we can see how things look like, and to improve some things of the infrastructure, like those two places where right now we expect a single value, and we could easily process multiple values. And there's that. I mean, what are the thoughts? Do you think it makes sense to make the CNI be able to process more than one beef and have the driver get an iterable of subnets to plug into?
I would say so. I'm not sure which approach is preferred, whether the impatient one or the patient one. So I think that's the key. Well, actually, you can start with the impatient one, and in parallel, you can work on getting some implementation on in Kubernetes as well, and so later support Kubernetes the proper way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, my thought on that was that we should build some of the parts for impatient. So I'm not saying to build the part that hot plugs or whatever. I'm saying just the minimal part so that we can try it. We can take some lessons of that, and then have a bit more information about what it means when we go to the Kubernetes network to try to influence how the network multi-homed pods will look like in the final release.
Sounds good to me.
Actually, I just added an action item here for defining the minimal scope of this feature.
Okay. Then how should that look like? You mean to make a blueprint or?
Yes, because I think we listed different options here, and actually my feeling that without this being properly addressed by Kubernetes as a tool, it will be probably challenging to support as a complete functionality.
No. This would be completely unsupported. I'm just don't get me wrong. I have no intention to support something that no intention yet to support something that Kubernetes does not support, because Kubernetes is planning to do something about it, and it would be misguided, I think. I'm just talking about building some pieces so we can perform experiments and hopefully be able to use some of those pieces when support does come, and to be part of the conversation.
Because so you say from the CNI level and beyond, or a bit more into?
No, I would. So the two things that I propose as the first step, the scope, is that I would really like to be able to try is to say, okay, we have a subnet driver that returns you the two subnet IDs. So for example, this would allow us to serve dual stack pods that they have both IPv4 and IPv6, and this is something that is well, we could do that with a single port, right? Well, it probably doesn't work, but let's say that you have a pod, you want two IPv4s for it. So I would like to try and see if we can do that, to have a driver that returns the subnet ID of the two. And just sorry, a moment before I forget. I know it's not completely related, but action item verify ports with IPs on two subnets. IP. It work? I suspect it doesn't, because with Kuryr network it was reported it doesn't work, and it should. But yeah, we should test it. All right, yeah. So I go back to where I was. So I would like that if we have a driver that returns several subnets, we can create port on the several subnets, and then we can attach multiple ports on that on the CNI side.
Okay, so this is very specific use case for a dual stack, right?
Or well, it could be, or it could be just that you want multiple IP. So, for example, you make a pod.
What I mean is this is not from Neutron point of view, at least, it's not two different networks. It's just two.
No. As I'm saying, so one part is the dual stack. The other part is, let's say that you want to make a pod that does load balancing, for example, and you want it to have multiple devices, so it has a device on each of the networks that it has members. I'm not thinking about Octavia here now, but let's, for the sake of the argument, that the possibility is that the subnets could be in several networks.
Okay.
So this is the basic use case.
So you say there may be the case that pod will have some special hint that it should be treated in this way, and
no.
Something that
well,
going to work for any pod in the system, right?
So yeah, so this depends on the driver that we write or that somebody writes. If the pod has a hint that says I want also this network, it could have an annotation that says I want to be part of this network as well. So you could have the driver recognize that. I'm not saying that's what we should do. Or you could have a driver that when it sees the pod name, for example, it already decides by itself. It has a database somewhere that it checks where it should be. I don't really mind.
Yeah, I mean the hint by implying that this pod requires special treatment.
Right. Yeah.
Not
exactly. It can be internal of the specification of the pod, or it can be external that it's consulted elsewhere. I don't have an opinion on that, but like distilled into what it means for our infrastructure, it means that we have to be able to deal with getting more than one port per pod. And to network it.
Yeah, I don't have any, say, privileged information about this, but I would say the two main use cases are one data plane interface and one control interface. And the other one would be to have multiple interfaces for virtual functions, so containerized virtual functions. So I would say in both cases, probably you want to join different networks, but under the same management system. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably. Yeah. So at the very least, I would say Neutron is involved for both interfaces. And anyway, I would say it's a reasonable starting point to try to support these cases. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you have different inputs.
No. It's the sort of things that people were asking about that made me propose this session. That people wanted to have one interface in a control plane, another in the data plane, or they wanted to do some networking function by running something inside the pod. Sometimes they want it with normal devices. Sometimes they want it with exotic devices as the third point in possible approaches that I put. But that's the request that I've been hearing quite a while lately.
Yeah, I agree. Me too.
So just since it kind of came into the conversation, another part is like to be able to plug devices like SRIOB. I don't know whether we want to do that or not. It's just something that came up also. It would mean that the OBS agent needs to run with a special configuration on the server as well, and we would probably have to have some whitelist.
SRIOB is an additional mechanism driver, so why would it require some obvious different settings?
Well, so if I remember correctly, you need to run some extra part of the OBS agent that by default it's not running. I think you can do without, but if you wanted to set active and stuff like that, I think you need to run some extra part. It's just by the way, it's not very important for us.
Okay, it's a matter of how you deploy on the Neutron on worker node, right?
Right. It's part of the Neutron deployment. Yeah, it's for our part. What's most important is that we should have a white list of devices that where we take from, just like Nova Compute does, if we want to support SRIOV. Like we should say this.
Actually, Nova does a bit. It does all the allocation of the devices. The question if it's something that we want to.
That's an important question.
Kuryr to do.
If we want to, well, I would say if we want to support SRIOV, we should do that part. Like that you say, so these devices are whitelisted sources of virtual functions, and hence like Kuryr has to manage them. And then we would need a Kubernetes scheduler plugin. I think you linked them, but I lost the link. I wanted to put it on the references, Irena, but
I can find it.
Okay, yeah. So if you can find it and put it, so it would mean that we would have to have something like that. Otherwise, we would have to assume that the environment is homogeneous and that all the hosts have the same amount of virtual functions and so on, which may or may not be the case. But
I think it's probably
rare.
won't be the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
You may even mix different vendors and.
Right. You probably have Intel and Mellanox and so on.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally, as another exotic one that was brought up sometimes in discussions in the summit and PTG and these places is about DPDK, and this is not about something that we already have on the planning, which is to have the pod in VM have the VMs served by OVS DPDK. Is something I think Vikas already has on his list of things to do to take his performance measurements and try with OBS DPDK. But this would mean like for bare metal, for example, that you would tell Kubernetes to run the pod as privileged, and then we would take care of mounting the devices that are necessary for a DPDK application to run inside.
I think we have two cases there actually. So one of them is when you have OVS DPDK and the device, the interface is like inside the container is just a tab device. And completely different case is when you want to run a DPDK enabled application inside the container.
Right, I was talking about the second, yeah. So you think that the first one makes sense? Like for bare metal?
I'm not sure actually, but OVS DPDK could show some performance improvements by itself. So it might be valid.
Like I may be a bit confused now. So you would have OBS use DPDK to create a tab device, and that tab device we would be moving inside the container, or because usually that tab device is consumed by QEMU, right? So I'm not sure how a container would consume that.
This is slightly different. So it's kind of inverted tab device. So when you use tab device with QEMU, the user space is on the QEMU side, and the kernel side is on the hypervisor. But in case of OVS DPDK, the user space side is the OVS side. and the kernel part of the tab device is inside the container. I'm not sure if explained.
I guess I would need to see it running to make myself the idea of how this would work. But if
you could try running OpenVSwitch DPDK enabled this dev stack, and when you check the L3 agent, you'll see the tab device that used by the L3 agent for the router, and that's exactly the same use case as we would have with the containers.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not following you. How does this relate to Kuryr specifically? I think you can use the DPDK enabled OVS regardless Kuryr. I'm not sure I'm following. There is a logical connection there.
No, it's slightly different because
okay.
When you create ports for OVS DPDK for virtual machines, those ports are of vhost user type. But for our case, those ports wouldn't be using vhost user. They would be using tab devices, similar to how L3 agent works. So.
Okay. Okay, so as far as I know, so basically, when you run DPDK inside a container, I'm not too sure about, I don't remember anymore actually regarding the bare metal case, but inside a VM, you could use, I think it would work for bare metal as well, but it's a PMD driver called how is that?
vhost. There are actually several.
Yeah, okay, but but then you would use how is that? I don't remember. I think it's vhost user.
No, vhost user is it's for the QEMU.
Sorry, Virtual user. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
Virtual user.
What are your drivers and what are your devices in the guest VM?
Yeah.
So
what I'm saying is that we have two different use cases. One use case is when you're running and you're not using kernel TCP IP stack for your application, because that is implemented by the DPDK application itself. And another case is when you just want to run DPDK-enabled OVS, and you're still running your normal applications that utilize normal kernel networking stack. So both cases are possible, and both of them have some use cases. It's just a matter of if we want to support both of them at all. But
okay, now I see. Okay, so for the nested containers, I think it's doable, probably. I know there is a patch ongoing. I'm not sure, I haven't checked lately, but it should be possible at some point to run containers without needing the privileged mode. By using, though, this Virtual user PMD driver only. So for the bare metal case, actually, yeah, I think you're right. There are two options. One would be this one, I think. And how to plug to the OVS bridge? I think, yeah. I need to check, but
the trick there is that DPDK enabled vSwitch is completely in user space. It doesn't utilize kernel itself, but so you use tab device to bridge from OVS to the kernel stack, but the kernel stack is the application side of that. So it's kind of like reversed from what we are used to.
Ilya, do you have some reference that you could add to the Etherpad about this approach, about the reverse tap?
Well, it's not reverse tap. It's just,
well, yeah. I mean, tap just for giving kernel access to the user space stack.
Well, as I've said, if you check the networking DPDK, I'll try to find this repo.
Okay. Like it doesn't need to be now, but if you can update later the Etherpad with the reference, it would be good. All right. So, in terms of action items, the minimal feature scope, it would be about multi Neutron ports.
I've shared the link in the chat.
Okay. So let me copy it.
So that tab device I'm talking about, you can find it in the L3 agent. So if you run this and look at the L3 namespace, you'll find that tab device.
Perfect. So I don't know if somebody finds it interesting and wants to propose a blueprint for doing something like that for the PDK, like propose. I'll just put it, and then if somebody takes it in next Monday's meeting, so I'll be happy for it. Otherwise, we'll see who wants to do that.
If you want, I can take some of the DPDK related actions. I'm not probably going to be able to make progress before another couple of weeks, I'm afraid. So I'm available. It's up to you. If someone else wants to go ahead, please do so.
I think 2 weeks is still earlier than most of us will have time for. Sorry?
Antonio, so yeah, I'll also be exploring this part, so maybe I can.
Okay. I thought you were more centered on the DPDK, but on the pod in VM, because is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So
okay.
Because that all will like anyways I'll have to understand a bit completely, so I can see this part also.
Okay, sounds like a team to me of Marco and Vikas.
Good.
All right. What else? I don't know. Like I'll put also for SRIOB in case somebody has interest into that.
I think it is, but probably DPDK is more.
I think people are gonna want DPDK much more likely.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it there in case there is somebody who really wants it. I think I'm more likely to jump out of the window than to start coding SRIOB management now. Like I've been in the business before, and well, it gives advantages, but I would like to check the newer stuff to see if it is easier to manage in the code. Yeah.
And of course, you are constrained by the number of virtual functions. So it really depends on the. I mean, it's a really specific use case.
Well, my server's card here at home doesn't have DPDK support anyway, so it's not like I can try it right now. But
You can try it inside the virtual machine. It works with
fake DPDK.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's a very good point. I was already trying.
Also, you can get it working with the Virtual as well.
Even with Virtual, interesting. Cool. So I'll try it because I have a nested lab, so that's a very good way for me to to try the patches when somebody sends them. All right. So
just I can't say for the libvirt, but I'm using VMware and it does work with E1000E, but it doesn't work with E1000. So
okay,
only E1000E.
So you have not tried it with Virt.io?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll check if that can work because
I think my colleague tried it with Virtual, but I'm not sure if he got it working. It should work because it's supported. It's listed as supported.
Okay. Well, if it doesn't work, I guess internally I can reach some Virt.io people to try to figure out what's wrong, and figure it out, and maybe then document if somebody else wants to try it. Cool. Yeah, because I don't use anything but KVM and libvirt, so VirtualBox and VMware are completely out of my game. All right. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to have for action items. If anybody has more action items or wants to bring some point, we still have a few minutes to discuss.
I might add that we have people around here that follows SIG meetings. So I might, if you want, I can follow up, ask those people and follow up whether there have been discussions on multiple interfaces lately.
Yeah, that would be good. Yes.
I also wanted to mention that actually they do quite a good job by documenting the meetings. There are usually some video recording and proper agenda, so it's something that we can also follow. And I guess if there are some points to raise, so it just quite easily can be added to agenda, and then we can plan to join the meeting.
Yeah, so I just want to come in here. Actually, I'm also following these SIG networking meetings and watching the videos because actually it's not possible for me to attend the meetings because it's at very odd time for me. But anyways, I'm watching the recordings every week after the meeting. So what I can do is I can create the minutes of meeting from each meeting and can share with the over the mailing list or something like that. Summarize
that would be awesome. Because I think
it's even better.
for most of us, it's at an absolutely terrible time. I think, yeah, actually for all of us in this call, it's at a terrible time. So having
maybe so every Monday maybe I will Monday morning I'll share over the mailing list this.
That would be perfect, or even just if you want on the IRC, on the weekly IRC meeting, if there was something of consequence, you can just bring it up. Since you have been watching the recordings, I wanted to ask, do you know if work has started already on adding support for the CNI 0.3.0, especially the multiple interfaces?
There is a discussion going on, but yeah, there's a proposal.
Do you know if Dan Williams is going to be working on it, or it's somebody else?
Actually, there are two proposals for this. One is by Dan Williams, and one is by another guy. I forgot his name, Joji, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, thank you a lot for volunteering to give the reports about this. It's really appreciated.
You lazy guy.
Yeah. All right. So, does anybody else have anything to raise? All right, see you back in 10 minutes. Well, 11. Thank you for joining.